This video is powered by investing.com. Bam! The European Commission did it again. And I have to say, Ursula von der Leyen, great job. Seriously, I don't say it a lot, but you really did well this time around. Because Google finally got hit with fines again. And this time it's about 890 million euros worth of fines. And the message does seem to get clearer every month. Europe is no longer just writing the rules for big tech. It is actually enforcing them. And the weapon is a relatively new law called the Digital Markets Act, or DMA in short. Okay, we do have to zoom out for a second and give you 30 seconds of theory. The DMA is Europe's attempt to stop the biggest tech companies from abusing, well, the enormous power they have over the internet. Companies, you know them, like Google, Apple, Meta, Amazon, all American of course, aren't just successful businesses anymore. They're what the EU calls gatekeepers. In other words, they control the digital gateways that millions of us use every single day. And here is the basic idea behind the law. If you own such a gate, you should not be allowed to give yourself special treatment. And to really drive this point home, let me give you a pretty cool analogy. Imagine you own the biggest shopping mall in the country. Now imagine you also own one of the small shops inside that mall. It will be so tempting to give yourself the best location right at the entrance, while everyone else gets tucked away on the third floor right next to the toilets. That's exactly the kind of behavior that the DMA is trying to prevent. And according to the EU, this is exactly what Google was doing. When people search for hotels, flights, or shopping, Google didn't just show the best websites. It consistently gave its own services the very best placement. And for that, Google was fined 460 million euros. Deserved. And that wasn't even the only problem. The Commission also found that Google Play still made it way too difficult for app developers to tell customers about cheaper offers outside of the Play Store, making it so much harder for consumers to actually find the best deals. And that resulted in a second fine of 430 million euros. Again, deserved. And together, the two fines add up to 890 million euros. And now Google has only 60 days to bring both Google Search and Google Play into compliance. And if it doesn't, the Commission can come back with even bigger fines. Now, this isn't Google's first clash with Brussels. Actually, far from it. Because over the years, the European Commission has handed out more than 10 billion euros in competition and Digital Market Act fines to big tech companies. And as you can see, Google really has been the Commission's favorite customer by, quite some distance. For example, and this one has to be mentioned because it's one of the biggest, the recent Android case. Back in 2018, the Commission concluded that Google had abused its dominance by requiring smartphone manufacturers to pre-install Google Search and Chrome if they wanted access to the Play Store. The fine was more than 4.1 billion euros. Of course, Google appealed, then appealed again, and then appealed again. And it literally almost took 8 years before finally Europe's highest court said, no, the Commission was right, now you have to pay up. The question is though, is all of this enough? We will come back to that, because there is another side to this story. If Europe really wants to compete with Silicon Valley, we also need to build successful European companies. And that's why I personally have been shifting my portfolio towards European companies instead of just buying the usual American tech stocks. And that is why I use Investing Pro, the flagship product of investing.com. And the best feature really is ProPicks AI. Let me show you. It scans huge amounts of financial data and uses AI to find companies with massive upside potential. And right now we're looking at US tech titans, so no, we want to look at something European. And we have France here, but we also have Germany. And there's different strategies here that you can choose. Hidden champions in Germany, or also Alpha Germany Select, which I really like because this is companies that are outperforming the DAX index. So when I click on this and I copy it over to my watch list, you can see a list of companies that are worth investing in by looking at this fair value label. So for example, SAP, massively undervalued, and DHL, also massively undervalued. I actually, because of this tool, already bought SAP, and I'm now thinking about DHL. Now, I use this tool a lot myself and find great opportunities. And here's the thing you really don't want to miss. Investing.com is running its biggest summer sale of the year with 60% off. But with my exclusive code EUMadeSimple or clicking on the link below, you can stack an extra 15% on top of that. That's 60% plus 15%, the lowest price you'll literally find anywhere. This offer is only available until the end of the month, so really, don't miss out. And check the link in the description. Now, back to the video. And I'm not even going to pretend to be neutral here, because as you've noticed, I am absolutely thrilled that the European Commission has once again fined Google. But we also have to be very honest. 890 million euros sounds absolutely enormous. But for Google, it really isn't. It's more like pocket change. Because last year alone, Google generated around 353 billion euros in revenue. That means today's fine is worth just 0.25% of its annual revenue. Or to really put that into perspective, imagine you earn an average salary in Europe. Then this would be the same as getting like a €6 parking ticket. Is it annoying? Sure. But is it life-changing? Absolutely not. And just yesterday, Google reported another 24% increase in quarterly revenue compared to the year before. So financially, this really doesn't move the needle at all. And here's the thing. It could have been so much higher because under the Digital Markets Act, the DMA, the Commission can fine a company up to 10% of its worldwide annual revenue for a first offense, and then up to 20% for repeat offenses. So, for Google, that means the Commission could have imposed a fine of roughly 35 billion euros, but instead, it chose 890 million euros, roughly 40 times smaller than the legal maximum, which, honestly, in my opinion, is just so frustrating. Why was this so small? Officially, the Commission says this was Google's first DMA infringement, and that Google cooperated throughout the investigation, and that the goal isn't to collect money. It's to make sure that companies change their behavior. Now, to be very honest, to me, this is just blah, blah, blah. I seriously just can't hear it anymore, because, in my opinion, it's just a lie. I will tell you the reason right now. We are scared of no other than Mr. Donald Trump. Will he respond with another round of tariffs? And just imagine if Europe had just hit America's biggest tech company with a 35 billion euro fine. I do get the feeling that the reaction from the White House would have been rather explosive. And I don't think the EU wanted that, which, in my opinion, is a shame. This is what I think. As you've seen throughout this entire video, I am in big agreement with these fines. We need to actually keep them coming, because as long as these companies break our rules, they should pay. Simple. And I do think they need to be a lot higher too, because otherwise they will not make a single difference. But here's why I think Europe is still getting so much wrong, which is so frustrating. Because to this day, it really does feel like we hold our very own companies to higher standards than we do the American tech giants. And for that, all you need to do is look at taxation. Studies indicate that traditional European businesses pay an effective corporate tax rate of around 23%. Large digital multinationals, on the other hand, studies here have shown that the estimated effective tax rate is around 10%. How the does that make any sense? Why are we taxing the companies that employ millions of Europeans more heavily than some of the richest corporations on the planet? That honestly infuriates me, and I've experienced a tiny version of it myself. The German tax office once fined me because I submitted paperwork literally 3 days too late. Just 3 days. Meanwhile, we have some of the biggest companies in the world that have spent years using perfectly legal tax structures to save billions of euros. No, this really has to stop. And I think I have the solution. We need something called an EU-wide digital service tax. What it means is, if you're making 100 billion euros in revenue from European consumers, you have to pay 3% into the European budget. Very simple. And those could genuinely become EU's own resources, giving Brussels more financial independence instead of constantly fighting with member states over who pays what. It solves our whole budget dilemma that we currently have in the European Union. And here's the thing. People that always say, oh, Google or Meta, they'll leave Europe. Seriously, guys, get a grip. Roughly a quarter of Alphabet's global revenue comes from Europe. They're definitely not walking away from 450 million wealthy consumers. Thank you so much for watching. And if today's video made you want to actually act on this and start building a stronger European portfolio, Investing Pro is really where I would start. You can find undervalued European stocks, run fair value checks, and filter by country or sector in literally a couple of clicks. The biggest summer sale is only until the end of this month, which is one more week. And with this sale, you get 60% off, plus an extra 15% with my code EUMadeSimple. Thank you for watching, and a special shout out to our presidents too, who make all of this possible. Your support is awesome.